Hi everyone, it's Chloe.
And Dani.
And welcome to the very first episode of
The Tea.
So, as you guys know, we previously had a web series called Shiny Tot Hot Dish, but we decided that since we are aiming to change the world's opinions about trans people, that we would change the name of our show.
I love that. And our series is officially sponsored by McDonald's.
And the buttermilk chicken sandwich.
Go get you some.
How you doing? Not really. We just ate them. That's why. Anyways, so today's topic is going to be what we would tell our younger selves about how we wished we would have transitioned. And I've had many a comment and message about this topic. So we're just going to get right into it.
We're going to get into the tea.
Into the tea.
Have some tea.
I think we have been receiving a lot of comments about what steps did you take to transition, or before you transitioned, what did you do to kind of prioritize what you were planning to go through during your transition. And I don't think it's that easy. I think going into transition, none of us know what to expect and what steps to take.
And you know, before you start transitioning, you have lived your life, the majority of your life, as one gender.
Yeah.
So you're definitely stepping into uncharted waters.
Absolutely. And that can be really scary. And people handle that kind of stress and fear differently. Myself, I kind of isolated myself from everyone when I started feeling my need to transition. I don't know.
I kind of did the same thing. I isolated myself from my family. I mean, when I was living in a small town when I basically decided that I was ready to do this and ready to move. But when I was actually transitioning, I was like isolating myself from the rest of the community because I was going through school and in my studio all the time making artwork. So I just spoke about that in my Q&A video about how transitioning for me in an academic environment, especially in an art academic environment where you're spending most of your time making artwork or studying or writing, was kind of a good thing for me because it was like hibernation kind of. You go away for a little while and
come back a different person.
Flawless.
And I think that's a good segue into maybe our first step that we might talk about, and that I think should be contacting someone who is trans or being involved in the trans community.
Yes.
I think that's something that I definitely wished I would have done, is talk to someone else who was trans before I started my transition. I had a couple people, but I didn't really tell them until after I began my transition.
Yeah, and when I moved up here to Minneapolis, like, I went to a few of the group meetings that the Trans Health Coalition has every week. So I was doing that, and I was meeting people, but this is prior to beginning my transition. And I felt kind of awkward. I felt kind of out of place because there was all of these trans people who were already into their transitions around. And I'm just, like, sitting there like, hi. I look like a boy, but I want to be a girl. And it was kind of hard for me to get to that meeting just because it was kind of in a shady spot of town that I really didn't know much about. And I had to take, like, 2 buses to get there or something like that. So I didn't go as often. I regret not going as often, but, you know, I come from the perspective that's a little different from Chloe. She started transitioning when she was 22. 20. Oh, yeah, that's right. And I started mine when I was 28. I wish I would have
Started earlier.
Yeah, I had the resources available to me to start earlier.
Yeah.
Like around your age.
And that's the thing is, I started transition in the drag scene. And that is a completely different experience than, say, someone who doesn't. And I can say that I would have transitioned a lot later in my life if I didn't meet my friend, who's my trans mother, I call her, Faith. And you met Faith the other day.
I love Faith.
And so she really, really pushed me. I told her I was trans, and from then on, she kind of was the catalyst. She took me to the courthouse to get my name changed. She showed me what the process was. She told me what I needed to start doing. She told me about Dr. Thorpe, the doctor we both see for our hormones.
She's the best in the city.
Best in the city. And she kind of pushed me because I had this kind of I was a little scared to just start. And once she was like, okay, no, next, like, move, she, like, pushed me. So I recommend just talking to someone who's trans, because we have a lot of advice. Even if we're at different stages in our transition, we've still been through a lot. And I think I was scared initially to talk to other trans women about it, because I thought I was pestering them, or that I was being too intrusive. And I think if you come about it in a very kind, inquisitive way, then, I mean, I know we would definitely be open and able to talk to people about how to begin a transition.
Yeah, definitely. Now that I'm thinking about it, like, the summer that I started my transition, a good catalyst for my transition was my friend Jake, who is a trans man, and he introduced me to, well, he told me about Deb Thorpe, and, you know, helped me go through my school insurance and stuff like that, which I'm, you know, grateful for, absolutely. But, I mean, other than that, I just kind of navigated that on my own. Oh, I got a hair.
And I think we have made a pretty big impact on each other's lives as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, I mean, it's kind of relates to our first point, but the second point is just find a group of friends who understands what you're going through. And they don't all have to be trans, but I think it's really important to have trans friends, because people know, like, if you're having a bad day because you got clocked, or because someone said something to you or misgendered you or called you by the wrong name, like, we know, we understand what's going on in your life. And I think that makes conversation a lot easier, and experience a lot easier between the group of friends.
Yeah, and that's something that I spoke about in my Q&A video. When you are transgender, you come to the table in conversations, whether it's with other trans people or with, you know, heteronormative cis people. You come to the table fully equipped in the communication style of both genders and the experience of both genders. You have lived your life in both shoes, or both pair of shoes. Parachutes. You came down from the heavens.
I jumped out of the male plane and landed on the female island.
Hallelujah.
And I think going back to the experience of both things, I've kind of talked about that too previously. That's why I am such a big advocate for trans people going into nursing, because we have experienced so much. We know how to communicate with so many different people. We know the adverse effects of being a social minority. And in history, throughout history, trans women have always been healers, because we've experienced both. And so that kind of wisdom was always honored.
It's funny, I always kind of feel like I have a healing, like I'm a healer. That's what people have told me.
Yeah.
So our third point, things that we wish that we would have done sooner, is just to go and see a therapist about our issues, about our feelings regarding our gender identity.
Absolutely. And I just touched on that in my Q&A video as well. And you probably did too. Just about seeing someone who knows how to kind of reflect or like bounce back what you're saying, or some of the untold things that your body is saying.
A professional.
Yeah, they're professional. That's what they do for a living.
Yeah.
And I talked about how not everyone can afford a psychologist. Not everyone can afford a psychiatrist.
And not everyone is in an area in which people practice transgender mental health or transgender
and
healthcare.
So that's, it's definitely a barrier.
Yeah. It was a barrier for me for a good while. Anyway.
Yeah, because you were in South Carolina.
In the backwoods of South Carolina.
So, and that's something that I think is definitely worth it. I don't know if there's like telepsychologists maybe.
I think now there are there's probably therapists that do like Skype sessions or video sessions with people. who are able to connect with them over the internet and, after a time, give them that recommendation letter that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And
which I don't think trans people should have to see a
I know it's a barrier.
Psych practitioner together.
They're gateway keepers.
It literally is. It's like putting more money into the medical system, but that is another video.
You're going into that field, so
I'm planning to change it.
Yeah, revolution.
So I think that is definitely something we both wish that we would have done, is see a psychologist or some kind of mental health professional earlier, because I definitely would have transitioned way earlier if I was seeing a mental health provider.
Same thing here. Like, if I had more examples in my teenage years of something to identify with, a trans person to identify with, to know what I was going through and to have a name for it, I think that I probably would have started my transition quite early too.
And so that, I think, is definitely one of our more important points.
Is be an example.
The next point we're going to talk about is don't rush.
Don't rush into surgery.
It seems like it is the most important aspect of your life, and it really is, to be yourself. And starting hormones is one thing. Going full-time as a woman is another thing. But surgery it's something that I personally look back on and wish that I did not rush. I got my breast done 9 months into hormone replacement therapy. And while I wouldn't go back and change it, I just wish I would have known that I would have the results that I have. Not saying that they're bad, but my chest was so tight. It was big enough to the point where I didn't need spacers for a year, that my plastic surgeon said. But I just went big, and that's another thing. I wish I would have gone smaller a little bit, because I now have scars. I keloided because my chest was so tight, and the scar didn't close together fully. So I know it sucks to not feel 100% in your body, but take time. Think about what your future goals are. For me, it was surgeries and also having children. I didn't think about that.
Also, let the hormones marinate. Like, for me,
let it soak in.
For me, like, starting out, something that I really wanted to do to address, surgically, was my nose, and possibly get gender reassignment surgery. Looking back on it now and looking at pictures of me from before and after, my nose has changed quite a lot. And it is now
so much smaller
on my face and proportional to my face. And as far as the gender reassignment surgery goes, looking back on it now, like, I wanted it, like, as fast as I could get it, and I thought that money was the only barrier. But thinking about it, taking the 3 years that I've been on hormones and really thinking about, is this a necessity for me? Do I need this? Is this something that I wake up every day and pine for and yearn for? Now, every trans person's experience is different, but in my experience, I decided no. Like,
yeah, and
I'm totally fine having what I have, and, the only two people that are going to see that in the world are the people that I end up with sexually, the people that I end up sleeping with, and myself.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's something, too, that I've learned is I do want to go through the sexual reassignment surgery, but when I first started my transition, I started raising money right away. I started calling surgeons right away. I started all of these things, and the most humbling experience I ever got was when I got a call from Dr. Marcy Bauer's office saying, "You've been approved for your surgical date," and I jumped up and down until I heard for the summer of 2017. And I was like, oh my God, that is so far away. And my younger self, meaning younger like a year ago, I was so depressed about it. But now looking at it, it has taught me so much patience. It has taught me to love myself no matter where I am, no matter what surgeries I've had.
Amen.
And I think, ultimately made me a better person. And it's made me think about what things in life are my priority. So, I guess just a quick little tidbit before we go. If you guys like this series, our new web series, The Tea, please like this video and leave comments down below. Don't forget to check Dani's channel out, Dani Marie Wagner, and the rest of my channel out, A Girl Like Me with Chloe M. Please leave subjects for videos down below, as we love to talk about what you guys want us to talk about.
Or questions for question and answers videos.
Absolutely. And don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, and I have a couple of tutorials coming out. I'm just going to say that.
Okay.
Okay.
I would just like to let you guys know before we go that this web series is going to be driven by you. So what you want to see is what we will provide. Of course, we'll sprinkle in some other things that we want to do. But we really want to make this series about you guys.
Yeah.
And what you want us to talk about.
This is our way of using our experience and using our knowledge as we progress in our transitions to give back to our community.
We are the trans Oprah.
And you get hormones, and you get a vagina, and you get a penis, and you get a Hyundai, Pontiac, whatever kind of car I have.
Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time.
Bye.